Hi everyone, welcome to the fresh and the new episode of AI Makers Unpacked series. And Our guest today is Aparna Gupta. Aparna is a senior analytics and data science leader at Microsoft India. And Very interesting aspect about Aparna I want to highlight, and we will actually dwell and make her allude to this as part of the conversation and narration, is she spent a decade working in three big bulge banks: Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, and then she did a career switch. Not a switch in terms of changing her proficiencies and skills, but switch in terms of changing the domain. Over the last 3 to 4 years, she's been working with technology BMODs, Oracle, and currently with Microsoft. Thank you so much for joining, Aparna. Welcome to AI Makers Unpacked series.
Thank you so much, Samir, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure for me to be here and sharing my experiences with the audience.
Likewise. Aparna, I just want to start something with you taking us through your professional journey. And whatever time you've spent in the professional journey, I'm sure you have faced what I call the ups and downs, crest and trough, and a lot of trials and tribulations, and also aspects where our audience would like to know how this entire 13 to 14 years have been for you.
In one word, if I have to define these 13 plus years of experience, it has been enriching. And one thing that has always stayed with me whenever I have gone through the vicissitudes of this professional journey, it has been the resilience. So I started off like any computer science graduate. Basically, I moved on to a company known as Infosys, widely known as Infosys, basically. So I worked there as a software engineer. I joined Triple IT Bangalore to pursue my master's in technology. That was also the time when I was selected for by Siemens as their scholar. I got a campus placement with Deutsche Bank, basically, and then onwards my journey with the banks, basically, that you just now narrated in terms of my introduction, it actually started. So each and every experience, each and every education that I have received over this period of time has
Mhm.
only enriched me further in terms of my professional experience, in terms of the value addition that I have, and also in terms of building that professional and personal rapport with people. Because in this industry, if you see, I mean, people say that it's a very, very vast industry, but to me, it seems to be very small because one person with whom I have worked in the first bank, I mean, the Deutsche Bank, basically, I was able to meet the same person when I was working with Credit Suisse, basically. So the world is very small in terms of technology. And each and every experience that I have gone through, that I have received during this particular period has simply, made me what I am today.
Aparna, help us understand. And it's very interesting because when you spend a decade in three big banks and make these kind of moves, and by no means Microsoft and Oracle are small companies, these are behemoths, 800-pound gorilla. But more importantly, banks have also been traditionally very front runners on the technology side. And you've been early in your career, have got into these data mining, statistical analysis, OLAP, ETL kind of a thing. What is that you have seen from the banks adopting this data and analytics from the beginning, and what changes are you seeing now in terms of banks adopting analytics and data science?
The nature of the data that we have at banks is very much sensitive. They are prone to a lot of fluctuations, basically. When you talk about credit risk or market risk, they are prone to a lot of fluctuations. There are a lot of regulatory compliance, so we cannot do so much of experimentation. At least this is what I have felt, right? But with the product based organizations or with the technology behemoths, basically, there is a culture of failing fast and experimentation.
Correct.
So there was a conscious effort from my end to get out of my comfort zone, because I have been working into the risk analytics domain, the market risk, the credit risk, as well as a lot of data that was there, and I was able to glean insights from that data. But what was more important for me is to see cloud as an enabler, right? That's where basically when I got an opportunity with Oracle to be their cloud solutions hub leader from Bangalore location for NAST region, I thought like it will be good thing for me to learn, to explore more into that particular area. No matter how much I do analytics, no matter how much I am comfortable with AI, but augmenting it, or having cloud as an enabler, deploying the solutions over there, that will give me a different perspective altogether. So, and that was the reason I moved from my comfort zone. I thought, okay, let me go ahead, let me learn new things, let me actually explore, let me deploy, and let me enrich myself.
Nice. One of the dimension I want to, what I call unpack, and this series is called AI Makers Unpacked, is throughout your career, you've also been very, very, I would say, continuous in terms of acquiring new and much more enhanced academic qualifications or academic, I would say, credentials. So uh, I have seen or rather witnessed many of the leaders once they actually finish their academic kind of qualification, that's it. Then they spend 30, 35 years in the journey and do not make themselves any, I would say, uh, kind of, let's say, skiddable from academic qualification. But you have followed a different template. Tell us about this. What prompted you, and this requires a lot of juggling also, because on one side you have your personal life, on the other side you have a professional life, and the other side, you whatever is left is also this academic piece. So tell us about this, Aparna.
Right. So I have been a firm believer of that investing in knowledge is something that is going to yield the long-term dividends for you.
Correct.
And that is how I have seen. So I have seen people, who go into any organization, and then they wait that the organization or their respective leader or manager will organize a training for them. Somehow I think, it's okay, organizations have been, investing so much in employees, and they have been actually working in this direction. But what I feel is that I know what I want. I know what I have to do after, in terms of getting the knowledge. Basically, I know I want to build my skill sets onto the data or artificial intelligence or business analytics. If I'm not going to take that kind of initiative for my own good, basically, why should I expect others to take that kind of proactive measure for me? So that is the reason basically that has always prompted me. And even now, Samir, I have to be honest with you, I'm like pursuing some masters basically, but then that is again on the cards. I mean, in process as of now. I am yet to complete that thing. But yes, as I said, that I have always believed in investing in knowledge, something, learning something new, getting out of your comfort zone, and then investing in yourself has always helped me in the longer run.
So one of the thing, and this is interesting because I've heard a continuous thing, which is getting away from the comfort zone. So, which I am assuming you are a great believer, which is good because today you can't have static careers. I mean, that's gone kind of a thing. But also at the same time, Aparna, leadership has changed. The way we all used to manage teams, manage workforce, the way we need to kind of demonstrate ourselves earlier has all changed now to a very different set of leadership. From your side, when you started your career, and when you started managing teams or you acquired a bigger, chunkier role, what's been your observation about leadership and what's the style of leadership you follow?
You very aptly, compiled it or articulated it, Samir, basically, because earlier when we started off our careers, the leaders were, it was more of a manager, right? People were like managers, basically. We used to report to them. There was a standard process of 6 months appraisal and then performance review, and that's it, basically. Some trainings and all were organized. But now it has taken altogether a different dimension now. Companies want to invest in people,
Hmm.
and investing in people is not only about managing them, basically giving them flavors of autonomy, giving them the time to actually realize that how they are making the bigger impact in the entire value chain creation, whatever the company is destined to do, making them feel relatable to us, basically, right? Yes, they are very much integral to our part. So I think the shift was probably more on the technology, more on the deliverables, basically. Now also it is there, but at the core now it is the people and the ethics that has come into picture. And from that perspective, I have always believed in a coaching style of leadership as well as the authentic style of leadership. Basically, there shouldn't be any facade. Basically, I should be true to what I'm doing, and I should be true to the people whom am I, inspiring. Basically, and that's how I will be building a culture of trust.
No, I think that's relevant. What you said, this culture of trust, establishing credibility amongst the workforce is important because command and control is gone, as you rightly said. That erstwhile it was managers just commanding the teams, follow the kind of rule or the order was the norm of the day. Today, I think it's much more akin to kind of saying, look, everyone is knowledgeable, everyone is at par. But
Yes.
then what you demonstrate as a part of leadership becomes a kind of a trait. And those traits are not acquired, they are actually cultivated kind of a thing. So that's aptly said from your side. One of the thing I want to touch upon specifically in the area of analytics, data science, is this relevancy. What was relevant 5 years, 3 years before is not relevant anymore. And in my conversation with the leaders, I've often heard different views about keeping yourself relevant in data analytics, data science side. What are your views and how you have kept yourself relevant in terms of this knowledge gained from analytics, AI, data science side?
Sure. So, in terms of relevance, I always like connecting to people, networking. I think 3AI is one such great platform that provides the opportunity. I mean, I think it wasn't earlier available to many of us, earlier basically, but from the last 2 years or 2.5, yeah, I think it is almost 2 years, more than 2 years now
Two
that
years, yeah.
3AI,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think 3AI as a platform has been an enabler to increase the networking, of course. Then definitely, from our individual perspective, I do ensure that I do read a lot. Whatever new things come, basically, I do try understanding it. Basically, the perspectives, the different perspectives that it brings, the pros, the cons, what if scenarios, basically, the impact that it is going to make in the longer run. So yeah, so networking, and then keeping myself abreast with the latest emerging technologies that we call, and then understanding, and if need be, I do go for it for some kind of certification or education, just to ensure it's not that I want to showcase it on LinkedIn or somewhere, but it is just to ensure that yes, I know this thing now, I can implement this thing. So it is just maybe validation for myself, for me, basically, because I also believe in, the best competition is when you compare it with yourself. So what the version that I was a week earlier, basically, have I evolved from there? So that is something which is there. The other question that you asked about, in terms of the AI and analytics space, basically. So
Right.
when we design an AI and analytics solution, basically, it is designed for a specific set of scenarios. Like, for example, the solutions that were designed during the pre-COVID times, basically, when the lockdown came into place, somewhere in March 2020, all the solutions, all the assumptions that were taken care while designing any AI solution, that might have gone obsolete.
Right.
So there are two important things, basically. One is the concept drift, the other one is the covariate shift, basically. So these two are very important things while designing any AI and analytics solution, that we as an individual and as a leader should take care of this thing. Constantly asking the questions, or validating it, basically, right? So generally what we do is, whenever we build any solution, we want it to be fair, transparent, and accountable, basically, and then get some kind of regulatory audit and all. But more important is that will come at a later phase. But what is important is that we constantly question what we are developing, for whom are we developing, what are the underlying scenarios, are those scenarios going to change, basically. So I think instead of getting a myopic view when we are going to develop the solution, getting the contextual intelligence, and also developing it for a long term solution, and periodic validation of the AI and analytics solution will help keeping it more relevant.
Nicely said. One of the thing about, and I want to kind of have you double click this, the professional journey for any leader uh, comes in these chunks, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, whatever kind of a thing. And many of them actually think about 5, 10 years kind of a thing, which is To me, it's like very difficult kind of a thing. In your own space of professional journey, how have you planned your career? How exactly you've thought about few years in terms of horizon? And what is that secret formula or the sauce in terms of you deciding how your career will pan out? What kind of mulling over, or I would say thinking you did as part of planning your career?
Honestly, I only plan my education basically, right,
Hmm.
that I want to learn this, I want to get admitted to this college, I want to get this degree, or I want to get this particular award in this project and other such things basically. So I only invested, or I only planned my knowledge, as in this is what I will be doing after 3 years, I'll be doing after 2 years, or if things are coming basically I just grab it. But from the job perspective, it I mean, except for one move basically that happened right after my investment banking movement to product based organization basically, or technology organizations, except for that move, everything actually, whatever came my way, I did not think much about it. What I thought is that what is the value addition that I'm going to get to my profile, as well as how will I be able to contribute what I have learned on the during my education basically. So be it the management principles, be it the technology principles, or be it the data science part of it basically. So only one thing I have focused on, that is education. The other parts have come on the flow. And there was one point wherein I moved, I took a conscious decision to move from the banking sector to the
Hmm.
technology part of it.
Nice, nice. I think in a way, I think you've touched a very relevant point actually. This about gaining academic proficiency in the space of area what we work, which is technology, analytics, AI, data science, because uh, often we kind of say, okay, we'll manage teams, take bigger kind of roles, or do more chunky P&L kind of, let's say, business. But we don't make ourselves relevant from an academic viewpoint in terms of the latest and greatest what's happening. And that's, I think, which is an approach which is very different but very relevant from the side what you said, because without that, I think we are as good as, I would say, those what I call dead wood kind of logs, which are just running but have no meaning in terms of their own relevancy.
Absolutely.
Switching very differently, Aparna, I'm sure in the career which are, uh, I would say, long, there are some learnings as well. Now, if you go back, tell us what's been some of the learnings you had at different interjections or intervals of your career.
Okay, so I mean, one of the learning that has been quite prominent is being assertive.
Hmm.
Many a times when we start, or during the formative years, basically when I cannot say about it about everyone, but basically about me, basically there have been times when I agreed to people just because I wanted to agree, or just for the sake of agreeing, basically. But the data points basically were constantly telling me, hey, this is not the right thing, this is not the right thing, or this could be done in a better way, in an optimal way, basically. So I think that was one learning, that coming out more assertively rather being just saying yes, or just being a traditional you know what do we say, basically traditional yes man or yes person, basically, instead of that being more
So has
assertive.
the assertiveness come in now?
I think so, to a larger extent. Basically, at least I'm able to go back or push back basically with the relevant data points. If I have the data, I'm like pretty much confident.
And
So
if
I
you kind of go back and really reflect upon your professional journey, what is one thing you would like to correct if given an opportunity?
I think this assertiveness part, Samir. I think there have been times wherein I, even though I was having all the data points, but still I was like, okay, should I say no? What will other people think? I was like, kind of, what will people think about me? Whether they will be judgmental? How will I be judged, basically? But as I have evolved over, through different experiences, um, managing the stakeholders, speaking to various people, I had my own share of ups and downs basically during those times. And I also had some times when I thought, okay, no, this is not going, what will they think? But I think just being yourself is going to has helped me over a period of time, basically. I think that is one thing that I would like to really correct.
Just
Now
put
I'm
yourself as the right, I would say, word what you touched upon. I think, yeah, that's a message. I think what people should drive, because being authentic, being transparent, and
agreed.
uh, just expressing yourself kind of
Yes.
create those situations which will, I would say, decloud a lot of the things rather than just muddling it up. So,
Yes.
no,
So,
aptly said. Yeah, go ahead.
so now if I have any thoughts, basically, if I do not agree to a specific thought over the last few years, basically, I just go back and tell them in a most polite and humble manner ki, look, the data says this particular instance says this. So now I'm able to push back. Now I'm able to say no. Now I'm able to say more assertively, basically. And all my data points, all my logics are actually backed by a lot of data points, basically. So I think that is something I have learned as I have evolved during this experience.
Great, great. One of the thing which we've been constantly asking the leaders upon, and I have a same question for you, is specifically in this time where exodus of talent is heavy, performance assessment of organizations have come under spotlight. And I'm not picking up any organizations as generic, it's like
Hmm.
all across. I mean, somewhere I think the workforce altogether is failing to connect with the performance assessment systems which are prevailing in the organization. So there is a kind of a rhetoric or a kind of a, let's say, an effort to really ask, I would say, all the relevant stakeholders and all the leaders that look how one should evaluate the workforce, people, talent. What is your view in terms of evaluation of the workforce? I mean, do you think this should change what exists today overall? And again, we are taking generic scenario, or there are some new, I would say, practices you believe should be introduced in the organization. What's your view around this?
So earlier, when this performance evaluation used to happen, it was more towards just the delivery, basically delivery aspect of it. That how much you promised, how much your manager or how much your leader expected, and how much have you delivered. Over a period of time, it has been impact driven. How much impact the person is creating, basically. Plus, that is one aspect of it. How much the person is able to elevate the other people through his or her contribution. The third aspect is basically leveraging others the good things that the other people are doing. And the fourth aspect that I feel is very much important is the culture aspect of it, that as a shared belief, as a core belief, basically, are there some of the things that the person is displaying as part of cultural uh, workplace culture, basically, in terms of empathy, in terms of respect, integrity, celebrating the diversity, letting people feel inclusive. I think all these facets have been coming into picture when anyone nowadays does the performance evaluation, doing it just based on the deliverable. Probably that was something, as you rightly said, that was something during the early days. Now it has been multifaceted, and for all the right reasons, I feel. And
Great.
that's why employees also feel that, okay, this is how they are making the impact, and they feel more related, they feel to be with the respective organization.
And shifting gears, Aparna, I'm given to understand in your entire set of organizations, wherever you have worked, you've also been associated in terms of taking different initiatives, interventions as part of driving, I would say, much more advocacy in terms of different, I would say, causes or I would say initiatives from organization. Tell us something about that, some of the initiatives you've taken, and how have you gone ahead in terms of planning or executing those things?
Yeah, so during the formative years, I did participate, or I did contribute to the community of that is called as Women in Technology, or
Mhm.
IT Women Council, or towards increasing the footprint of the people. Basically, so if there's a specific D&I group that has been made, and people, most of the time, people mainly associate diversity just with the gender diversity, which is not true as a case, basically, right? It is diversity is a much broader spectrum which encompasses various types of diversity. It could be cultural, it could be generational, it could be academic, any such thing, basically. And more importantly, diversity is just one thing, but are we going to include it, basically? So during the formative years, I did understand understand the nuances of it from my leaders, from the people whom I worked with, and some of the leaders have really, left a lasting impression on me in my professional career. As I navigated through the other organizations into a more senior role or a more, leadership role, like kind of thing, basically, I have realized and I have felt that okay, diversity, inclusivity, and representing these kind of causes or championing these kind of causes is definitely going to help. So yeah, so I think DNI and then Women in Technology, IT Women Council. These are some of the things basically that I have been a staunch supporter of, and I have been spearheading in some of my roles.
Nice, nice. Future forward, what is that you see happening to technology, data, analytics, uh, AI in the time to come? If you have to just crystal gaze at some of these uh, areas, focus kind of, let's say, approaches or some trends, what is that you believe would be the trends for next few years?
I'll start with data because that is the foundation of most of the things that you just talked about or you just referred. Data probably people say that okay, data scientist is going to be the most in demand job of this and the upcoming centuries, but I feel and I think some of us will also agree that data engineering is equally important to have the base, a good base, a strong foundation laid out basically for any for any data scientist to work on top of that. In terms of data basically, whenever I think over a period of time it is important that we understand the nuances of data.
Hmm.
Just getting the data, we all talk about the big data, but what happens is people as an individual, what we think that okay, it is just about increasing the number of records. We do not pay so much of attention that okay, what is the value that data is bringing to us. So let's say if we are talking about any person data, I mean from a customer point of view, customer records basically, we just see okay, we have 200, 300, 1000, some that kind of records, 1000, 5000, that kind of records basically. But do we also pay attention to the wider aspect of it, that okay, five columns are there basically, but can we increase it to 10 columns? Can we get more enriched data? That is one. Second is basically, what are the diverse sources of data that we are going to get from? The diversity that we are getting. So, yeah, width is important in terms of data, but more important is the diversity of the data, diverse sources. So many a times we just one credit card company gives us some information, the other credit card company gives us some information. So I don't think so that there is a huge variance in terms of the data set that we are going to get from either of these sources. So it is important to understand that okay, if it is a not correlated data set, from where we are actually sourcing this particular data. So that is another thing. The third is basically the contextual intelligence, the contextual understanding of that particular data. I think that is something which has been really seeing a dearth. People do data analysis, people are good at certain analytics tool, but do people really understand the value of the data,
Hmm.
or in which context, which domain that particular data is being implemented? And then the fourth part of it in terms of the data and AI and analytics is basically imbibing it as a culture. So like for example, whenever we do any kind of product development, we develop a business model canvas, that is BMC, right? So do we have AIMC kind of thing, that is AI model canvas, wherein we know that okay, before even is jumping on to solve any particular solution, do we know that what is the training data set, what is that we are going to predict, what is that we are going to analyze, who are going to be the end users? And then I mean there are seven aspects of the AI business model canvas, AI model canvas, that I should say. And then in which scenario is that data, is that AI model and analytics model and the underlying data is going to be used? So is that going to change over a period of time? Is that a dynamic scenario? Is that a static scenario? Do we need constant validation? If we need constant validation, basically what should be the periodic assessment? Should it be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, depending on the sensitivity of the data and the sensitivity of its use basically. So I think all these combined will definitely pave a way for a much better wider solution acceptance for the greater cause.
Got it. No, I think particularly I liked what you said about this AI business canvas model, because at some level, AI is not just about doing in silo or a bunch of POCs or few interventions. It's changing or redefining the course of the organization. Along with that, as you rightly said, the in-swing culture will also change. So one needs to really look at that in a very holistic 360-degree view. A quick thing, Aparna, if you're, and this is one word kind of an answer I want, if your employees, peers, colleagues would like to kind of describe you in one word, what that would be?
Well, this is a tough one. Okay. Uh, okay, I can say just one word. Maybe learner,
Learner.
quick
And
learner.
professionally, this is more like a rapid fire. The idea is to put you in a spot, so
Okay.
which is good in a way. Uh, from a professional side, what keeps you awake at night?
Uh, I mean, I think one is definitely the kind of things that is happening at 3 AIs, Samir. I mean, I do open LinkedIn and I do get so many good posts basically that hey, 3 AI is doing this and this is the Leaders Unpack series, this is the Quad Summit, this is the this Zenith Awards, and also I think this is something this really inspires me in terms of learning more and growing my network, trying to contribute more to the society. Because when I see people like you are contributing. I mean, I'm sure you are having so many things to do and so many things on your plate, but still you take out time, you manage so much of time to actually contribute back to the community. So I think this is one thing that that I would really say that it keeps me motivating in
And
terms of contributing.
once you finish your career at any stage of time, what is that you would like your career to be known for?
Resilience,
Resilience, okay.
or being anti-fragile, I must say, basically. So
Anti-fragile.
there have been times where I have gone through my set of not so very good moments basically, but I have always taken that as a challenge, and when I came back I look back and then I realize, hey, it is maybe a step further that I have reached, or I have performed better than what I was performing earlier. So I think being anti-fragile has really helped me.
Absolutely. And I must say, Aparna, in the last 30 odd minutes, I think there is one facet which touched me very nicely was about this whole uh, authenticity, what you brought to the table in terms of conversations, being open, transparent, and at some level, leaders are very guarded. They are very inward looking, don't open up kind of a thing. But as you rightly mentioned, the winds of change are compelling us, and especially in amidst the pandemic, are compelling us to kind of really define the meaning of not only professions but also life as well. And this is where we say the wholesomeness of the life is not just about profession, but our personal life as well. And today, when it's getting combined, it's producing unprecedented results for each one of us to realize that, look, as leaders, not only we have to give it back to our family, to the organization, but to the society as a whole as well. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the whole session. I found it very, I would say, open, candid, and I'm sure you also enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for your time, Aparna.
Thank you, Samir. Likewise, even I've enjoyed the discussion and I love the questions. Except for a couple of times, I found myself being on a like one word describe. So maybe that was a kind of rapid round. So it just took me some time to think and revert. But I just love the overall flow of the discussion. So thank you so much for hosting me here, and I look forward to contribute more to the society.
Great. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.